Okay, we're going to touch on the tools that you're going to need to go through this. I may have to add something later because I got them kind of laid out and I'm trying to go off memory as best as I can. We'll add in later if I forgot something. But this is pretty much off memory what I think that you're going to need. First things first, always good to have a service manual floating around here. Those are the Dodge Bible. But if you're the type that likes to have torque specs, they're in there. And also I imagine you can find them on any of the forums too as well. Let's see, intake gaskets. Sometimes you get lucky, you don't rip them, but if you are the type that want to replace gaskets, it's always good to have a pair of those floating around just in case, you know, since they rip sometimes. Oil filter wrench, you'll see what those be used for later. We're not changing the oil, but you'll see the vent tube on the front of the engine, or on the front cover. You can get that off real easy with a Cummins oil filter wrench, and works very well without breaking it. You'll see. Sometimes if you got to clean gaskets material up, it's always good to have a little die grinder with a buffer wheel. I love this tool right here. It's my little Makita 3/8 impact. You don't have to have it, but man, it makes everything a lot quicker. This is my third hand right here, so not necessarily needed, but I highly recommend it. Pry bar, you know, that's always good to have floating around. Hammer and punch, again, you'll see where that's going to be used later. Not absolutely necessary, but I highly recommend it. You'll see. I got a little cheater bar there. If something gets real tight, some of these nuts that we're going to be taking loose can be a little on the tight side. You can have a little extra grunt to basically get the torque needed to loosen them up without, you know, busting a vein in your head. Let's see here. Torque sockets. Those are going to be needed for the bolts that the bracket bolts to the underside of the VP-44. You're going to need a full set of those. I specifically, I'll touch on what size is needed. You don't absolutely need to have this, just as long as you have that one size. This is a pump puller, or pump press, or however you want to call it. I got this out of a 12-valve timing kit. The part number, if we can see it, if you want to get it, is an SP504, and it's made by Blue Point. Any Snap-on dealer can get that for you. Awesome tool. If you're planning on doing a lot of these, I would highly recommend getting those. Makes things pressing the gear off a snap. Sorted wrenches. Basically, we got your 8mm. I use gear wrenches. I love them. 13mm, not absolutely necessary, but there's a few half-inch bolts. I use metric because I used to work for Nissan, so I got a full metric set. Let's see, 17mm, 18mm, those are mainly for the fuel lines, and the 19mm stubby, because those back lines are kind of hard to get to. I find this a little bit easier to get to, and I'm going to pause a second. Okay, where was I? 19mm or 3/4 inch, translated to standard size. These are for the injector lines. Stubby is better to get into tight spots than the full size, obviously. These are hose clamp pliers for the vent. Crankcase vent makes it a lot easier. You can also use channel locks. You can also use linesman pliers. But I find these work to be best because they'll lock and they'll hold it open, and then you don't have to worry about them slipping or anything else along those lines. A couple big sockets you're going to need. I'm not too sure on this size. This is a 15/16 socket. I believe that's for the alternator nut, and I believe this is a 1 1/16 socket. That is for the pump nut. That goes on the VP-44 shaft. Again, if those are incorrect, I'll correct them later whenever we get down to that point. A mirror. I don't use a mirror anymore, but if you're just unsure of, you know, your alignment with the keyway to the gear, this is good to have, you know, to kind of get in there. Extensions. Always good to have a couple of extensions around, especially when you start getting into the nuts that hold the pump to the front case. You'll need something to get back and hit those hit those nuts. Couple of ratchets. I prefer the long extended handle ratchets. It gives a little bit more grunt. You can get a little bit more turn on the nuts and bolts that you're working with. Tends to help you out a little bit. Couple of extra sockets that you use a lot of on this install. We got a 13mm, or again half-inch. We got a 15, I believe 9/16 will substitute into that just fine. Maybe 15 is just a little smidge on the big side. This is 10mm. Use that one a lot. You'll see an 11mm or 7/16 is for the clamp that holds the bellow boot to the intake horn, basically the cold pipe coming up from the intercooler. And again, I'll kind of go a little bit slower, but these are just kind of the tools that you're going to need. And then this is my full basic set that I bring around everywhere. I've had this since I was a kid, and it's just kind of stuck with me and through my professional career as a mechanic. I love it to death. I got my full basic sockets, and that way you can't go wrong. You're not going to be missing anything, so I highly recommend that. And I guess we'll go ahead and get started. So oh yeah, the pump itself. You want to make sure that you check this pump and make sure it is the correct one. This is your check valve on the return side of the pump. You always want to make sure you get a new one of these every time you do an install. If you don't have one, I highly recommend calling your manufacturer to purchase the pump from. Get one. It's not always needed, but it's always good to know. It's just cheap insurance, and I haven't found a manufacturer that doesn't send one of these along with it. So that's a good thing. Keyway, you always want to make sure you got a keyway in the shaft. It's right there. I don't know if you can see that. There's a little arrow on that. You can see the arrow right there. The arrow is always pointed towards the pump, and you'll have some numbers on there. So if this ever falls out for any reason, you want to make sure that arrow points back. I've heard rumors where it'll cause a pop of code or something along those lines if you don't get it incorrect. I honestly don't know how that is really that sensitive, so I can maybe fill us in why. You'll see it's an interference shaft, so it presses on the gear, so it holds on nice and tight. This is basically setting your timing, so you don't have to set the timing on this pump, but you have to make sure this keyway lines up with the gear. And this is the keyway that they're talking about also. It can fall off into the front cover and ruin your day. And I'll show you a trick to kind of keep that from falling out a little bit later. That's where the hammer and the punch come in. Pump, kind of a quick lesson on what pump is what. The particular truck we're working on this evening is a standard output 235 horsepower Cummins. You always want to check these numbers. And mainly you're concerned with the last three numbers. It says 027. That is a standard output pump for a 235 horsepower Cummins. Now if we're working with a high output, the 245 horse motor, that would say 028. You want to make sure you got the correct pump for the job. Now there has been rumors that you can cross a standard output pump into a high output engine. That has been done with success. Do it your own accord. Do your own research. Make sure that's something you want to try. I have heard of people putting the wrong pump in trucks, and basically what happens is they have tons of drivability issues if they can even get it started. So always want to make sure, if you're unsure what model pump that you, or what horsepower you have in your truck, horsepower engine you have in your truck, you can have the VIN number run, and the dealership can tell you, or simple rule of thumb, not always the case, but most of the trucks out there, anything with a 6-speed is going to be a high output. Anything with a 5-speed or an automatic is going to be a standard output. Now there has been some rumors I heard of early models that had the 6-speed in them that were standard outputs, but again, if you run your VIN number, you can be 100% sure. I guess let's go ahead and get started, and we'll go from there.